And now we'll move a little bit into the NHL side of things. And I mentioned this to you before we started, Caleb, about how I think that the best seasons to watch are the ones where there's a really, really tough fight for the Calder in any sport. Like, I remember in basketball, I'll go, obviously we just talked about basketball a little bit ago. One of my favorite seasons, or one of the things that I go back to, is Doncic versus Young in that rookie season. That was a super fun season to watch because you got to see two young guys who were clearly going to be stars for both their teams, and you got to see them really fight for something that, at the end of the day, nobody really cares about and doesn't really matter, but you still get to see that competition. And when you pit two young stars like that against each other, it's just fun to watch. And I have a feeling we might be getting that this year with the amount of talent that is in this rookie class. Obviously, I don't have to tell you about Conor Bedard. He's as good of a prospect as you can get. But there are a lot of guys here as well who have just as good of an opportunity to potentially give him a run for his money. Obviously, we got Shane Wright, who has a nearly first overall pick last year, and this is going to be his rookie season. We've got, if I just were to go down the list, we'd be here forever, but I'll name a couple. Luke Hughes, Devin Levi, Adam Fantilli. I think I said that right. Logan Cooley, Matthew Nyes, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot, and as I go down this list, I find it weird that there's some of these names are so low. You know what I mean? I don't know what you think, Caleb, but personally, I think this is going to be a super, super fun Calder Trophy rush, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's easy to dismiss because most people just think Bedard will win by default because of the amount of times that he's been hyped up. But I think you do have to look at Shane Wright as a little bit of obviously Shane Wright nowhere near the player that Bedard is coming into the league. But you have to look at it. Conor Bedard is a 18-year-old kid going in to play in a league with 30-year-olds. We've talked about this on the podcast before.
I was going to say, we've talked about this in both with the basketball example of Wembanyama and with Conor Bedard. Obviously, Conor Bedard, undersized center. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough based on his skill, and that's fair. We've seen those type of centers exist. I'm sure you've heard of Wayne Gretzky. But it's hard to just dismiss it to me. Where you see an 18-year-old, I think Conor Bedard is going to be a great player. I'll start with that. I think that saying that he'll have a McDavid-like rookie season is hard for me to say just because of the fact that McDavid came into the league. McDavid's like an athletic freak. That's why he's such a good player. Bedard isn't really that. He's just skilled. Like, he's got hands for days, one of the best snapshots you'll ever see. Like, he's one of those players. But he's not the athletic 6'1" McDavid that we saw. And even McDavid got injured in his rookie season.
Yeah. And it's
like
it's the LeBron versus Wembanyama thing again, right? Like, there was a difference between how LeBron was built going into his first year, even though he was young and coming out of high school, and the way Wembanyama was built. It's the same thing, Bedard versus McDavid.
And you got to realize we're not playing basketball. Basketball, like, as much as I've talked about how Wembanyama is, like, he's not necessarily built to defend a lot of the big league centers, and I'm sure he'll grow into that with time. I feel like in hockey that's even more of a factor, and it's a big reason why you don't see a lot of prospects go straight to the league. Usually they spend 1 year in the AHL, CHL, what have you, just to give them that little bit more time that they potentially could need. And we saw that with Shane Wright. And Shane Wright's a big guy too. I believe he's like 6'2", 6'3". Personally, if you were to ask me where I'd put my money out of all these odds that we've got in front of us, I'm looking at Shane Wright for 3,000. I think, well, actually, that's not true. Put my money on Bedard. But if you were to tell me to put all my money, I'd put it on Bedard. But if you were to ask me to put, and told me I have to put $10 on someone to win as much money as possible, I'd probably put it on Shane Wright. That is some good odds. Like, I think that he is going to have a great rookie season because he's been given that opportunity to develop as a young player. He's coming in his sophomore season, playing in a very good Seattle team. I think that he has a really good chance to win it. You cannot talk enough about how Conor Bedard deserves to be at the top of the odds, but he's going to have a lot of people that he's going to have to step over to win it.
Yeah, and there's going to be I think expectation plays a lot into it because expectations for Bedard are so high, whereas expectations for some of these other players aren't as high. the expectations for Shane Wright after how last season went, when Seattle kind of rushed him into a starting role in their lineup, the expectations for him are so low. That's why he's so low on this odds list, despite being a potential first overall pick. Just a few years ago, before Slafkovsky was taken ahead of him, he was hyped as being that first overall selection kind of material. But so I do think expectations plays a role into how the Calder race is shaped, because if Bedard has around the same level of season as Shane Wright, Bedard may be seen as a disappointment, while Shane Wright may be seen as a revelation. That's how it kind of plays into it. And I think
because we talked about this in our segment on Bedard when he got taken first overall. There's people who expect him to light the roof on fire in his first season. He's playing for a bad Blackhawks team, and it does he's an undersized center, and all of these different. He has so many things stacked against him, and I just have a hard time. If you ask me right now whether I thought Connor Bedard was going to be a point per game player, I would laugh at you in the face, because there is no way. And you can replay this. I'm sure I will. Next year when Connor Bedard puts up an 120 rookie season, first player to do it since the 90s, Yager or Solani, I just don't see it happening. I think there are so many things that are stacked up. I think Bedard is totally going to be a great rookie. I think a great rookie to me means 60 to 70, maybe closer to 60 points. I think that's what I expect from Bedard, and I think there's a lot of players on this list that I expect the same from. For example, Shane Wright, I feel like, obviously we keep going back to him, there's a lot of names on this list, but I think I could see a good 60-point rookie season, maybe 50 from Shane Wright. I'd put my money on that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad choice. And I think you mentioned something earlier about him playing on a bad Blackhawks team, and I think that's another interesting point to look up. Because I do think supporting cast impacts how well... Obviously, supporting cast impacts how well you play. I'm looking at the past... They've also got the past 10 Calder Trophy winners here. Looking at, other than some of these generational players, Nathan McKinnon is one that stands out. That was a badass at that time. But the rest of these players had a really good support.
Although can I just make the same thing? I'm going to say this over and over and over. Nathan McKinnon is the same kind of prospect to the point of McKinnon where he is, or McDavid, I just said the same guy twice, where he is athletic as hell. McKinnon is a beast. You got to realize, and he was always a beast. He's a fast skater. You watch him play, and there are some times where McKinnon looks like McDavid out there. And that's why McKinnon was able to come into the league and light it on fire. Connor Bedard, when I think of a scorer like Bedard, a guy who has an incredible shot, you look at how, obviously, my brain immediately goes to Ovechkin. And you want to hear the funny thing about Ovechkin? He's 6'3". He was always 6'3", and he lit the league on fire. And he hits people. He hits like a truck. But that's not something that Bedard has. He didn't grow up playing in the Russian leagues his whole life, right? It's two different things, I feel like. And I don't know. There's a little bit of stink that comes to me for Bedard's rookie season. I don't see him immediately lighting the league on fire, and that's not me saying that I think he's going to be a bust, because he is not going to be a bust. He is going to be a hell of a player once he grows into the league. But I think that, do I expect 82-point season in his first year? Absolutely not. But I'll let you go back to your thing of the last couple rookie players.
Well, yeah, because I think just mentioning the supporting cast around him, because that Blackhawks team is terrible. I think that is a uniquely terrible team.
There's a reason they got the first overall pick.
There's a reason they got the first overall pick, and there's also a reason they've been desperately trying to get these random, who did they get? Corey Perry, Nick Foligno, who is their big name? Taylor Hall. There's a reason they've been trying to get all these players. Because otherwise, you're filling out your lines with Taylor Radish, Philip Kurashev, Colin Blackwell. A lot of these players, I'm looking at that fourth line. All of them are new players, and all of them are veterans. Nick Foligno, Ryan Donato, Corey Perry. There's a reason to desperately try to fill out this roster.
Yeah, and I'm going to stall for a second because I really want to take a peek at this. I want to look at the Chicago Blackhawks lines and what like they are rumored to look like. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Because when you look at on Daily Faceoff, that's where I went. What their first line is rumored to look like right now. And they have Conor Bedard as the first line center. And you can't do that to a rookie. You can't do that. Like, Conor Bedard's had that expectation his entire career, but he is going to slide into that first line center spot. I feel like a player like Bedard, I would have been more okay, and I'm sure the Blackhawks probably will do this unless he like lights the roof on fire for the preseason, or he really gives them a reason to slide him into the wherever first line center. But you know what's funny? I honestly think that if they started, and we've seen this in some examples, and I've heard the comment be made about this before. I don't remember where I heard it. I personally, because of his size and because of the type of player he is, I don't know how surprised I would be if the Blackhawks tried to start him at winger. And maybe that's me, like, that might be heresy. That might be like, just like, you got to let your star player play center. But, like, I don't know. I feel like, let him adjust first, He can be a center later. Maybe let him adjust to the league at winger. That's when I look at a guy, I feel like if I were the Blackhawks right now, I'd try and bring in a veteran center to play along Bedard. And maybe slide Bedard at right wing. And maybe if I'm wrong and Bedard instantly lights everything on fire and he's instantly Jesus too, then you can slide him into center. But I think the expectation that he will be a first-line center immediately is just bonkers. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen.
It is, and he's also, he's playing with Taylor Hall, which gives him a lot. But he's also, at least in these games, playing with Lucas Reichel, who's another young player who has a combined about 30 games of NHL experience.
Can I be honest with you? There's a reason you don't see a lot of 5'9", 5'10" centers in the league. You put Conor Bedard in a face-off circle against a 6'4", or I don't know, throw a 6'4" name out there. That's a scary thing. You know what the Flames sometimes do? They let Lucic take face-offs. You want to see Conor Bedard in his rookie season taking face-offs against Milan Lucic? I don't. I don't want to see that. I want to protect this guy. This guy's an 18-year-old baby. Put him on the winger. Don't do that to him. He will die.
Yeah, but I'll bring it back to the just the Calder race in general. But there is the I don't know. I'll ask you, Simon, if you still I'll give I'll ask you to give your Calder pick, regardless of odds or anything, just your straight up pick. And I'm interested to see where you go with it. Do you still take Bedard, or with all that you've talked about, do you go?
Can I give two? Can I give two?
No, you can give one, and then you can give.
Well, I'm gonna.
But you have to stick. You have to stick to your
Okay.
guns. This is a sports podcast. Make predictions and stand by them. Come on.
Okay. My prediction, after everything I've said, would still probably be that Bedard will win it. Because of everything, unless some freak injury happens, like the McDavid injury, where it's just an unfortunate circumstance, what have you, I think that Bedard will probably win it anyway. But that's why I wanted to give a second one. I still think after everything I've said, Bedard's probably still going to win it. I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to say that Bedard isn't the best rookie in this class, because he is. I'm just saying that I think there are reasons to have doubts and that I don't think a bad or even 60-point rookie season for Bedard is reason to throw your hands in the air. I feel like if he gets a 60-point season, I'm okay, that's good. That's a good start. You are on a bad team. I'm sure he'll show flashes, and I'm sure he'll be great. But I don't think that he is going to be that immediate first-line center that the Blackhawks really, really need right away. And if you were to ask me who my second pick would be, it's a lot tougher. Because I'm looking at all these things. Do I give the bias pick?
Dustin Wolf?
Dustin Wolf is winning the Calder, baby! He is going to 82 games, win all 82 shutouts. He's going to get all of them.
I don't know.
He's gonna be nuts.
I don't know
Just
about that. I'm biased, but not that biased.
I think well, okay, that's me making an absurd pick just to take the fire off of myself. But I do think Dustin Wolf's gonna have an insane season. I think he would be him and Shane Wright would probably be my two sleeper picks, because I think there's a good chance Dustin Wolf goes off. I think there's a good chance he replaces Markstrom within the first 20 games of the season as the starter for the Flames. Yeah. That's my big I'm tired. Anyway, that's my big shocker pick. But I feel like, I don't know, Logan Cooley maybe. That'd be my lame pick. Because he's also another guy. He played a couple of years in college, I believe, one or two. Well, not one, obviously. He got drafted last year, I believe, and this will be his first season. He just signed with the Coyotes. I think he's another guy who could potentially beat Bedard for the Calder, just because it's a sophomore season. He's going to be a little bigger. He's going to play. He's got some. Well, that's a complete lie. The Coyotes suck, but a bit more experience on his belt, what have you. What's your pick? I'll let you go. Clearly, if you ask me that, I'm going to put you on the hot seat too.
Yeah, no, I would say, for as much as I think Bedard could win, and as much as I think he probably will, I do think the one person on this list that would give him a real run for his money in my eyes is Devin Levi on the Sabres. I think that
I was thinking that too, but because of my bias, I put Wolf above him.
Okay. I think Levi's just in the spot
because
where, he's played so many.
Levi's a great prospect.
Levi is a great prospect, and he's already been in so many clutch situations. I swear I see him at the World Juniors every year.
Oh yeah, I'm happy you said that.
He is a wall.
The funny thing is, I was thinking for years. I couldn't remember which year Levi played in the juniors for Canada. But I remember thinking at one point, where is that guy? He was so good, and now he's not here. And now all of a sudden, look at there. He is number 3 for the Calder, and he is there for a reason, because he is a hell of a player. He is a hell of a player. Would I put Dustin Wolf above him? Absolutely. Am I biased? Absolutely. But I think that he is an incredible goaltender, and I think that the Sabres are going to give him the opportunity to really, really just show off that skill that I've been personally waiting forever to see. He's one of those guys. I feel like whenever I'm watching the juniors and watching that Team Canada team, goalie is always one of the positions I watch the most, I think, because we've seen a lot of players come from that. Obviously, the other one, I'm cramping on his name. What's his name? Philly goalie. Caleb. Philly goalie. What's his name?
Carter Hart.
There we go. Carter Hart. Another guy. Juniors guy. That was another guy who I followed because of the juniors, and he, obviously, for a couple of years before he sucked, became a really, really good goalie. And I think that I take away the sucking. I think Devin Levi is going to be a hell of a goalie in the NHL once he gets there.
Yeah,
but who knows? If he wins the Calder, I will be in the crowd clapping for him. I'll just say.
I will too. And I think it was the point I was making earlier about the supporting cast around it. I'm looking again.
That's a good Sabres team.
Yeah, it is a good Sabres team, and I'm looking at a lot of these past Calder winners, like Beniers on the Kraken and Kaprizov on the Wild, and Moritz Seider on the Red Wings, a little bit less. Cale Makar on the Avs, Elias Pettersson on the Canucks, Barzal on the Islanders. There's a trend of these teams that are always they're not world beaters, but they're except for the
they're
Avs.
above the first overall pick, getting
and they're
barrel.
They're playoff. They're other than the Red Wings. I don't know if the Canucks or Islanders made it in those respective years.
I think you can make the argument that Adam Fantilli could potentially be in that argument too with the Blue Jackets.
Maybe, but the Blue Jackets aren't a team on the edge as much as Buffalo is in my eyes.
That is not the argument I was trying to make. I just more meant with who you're going to be playing these rookies with. And obviously with the goaltender just having that entire Sabres defense, because that Sabres defense is good in front of him, that's going to be that's going to help him out a lot. But I think that Fantilli, if he ever makes it to that first line, being able to, because he's a center. Yeah, he's a center. I don't know why I'm doubting myself on that. But if he ever makes it to that first line, playing with Laine and Gaudreau on his wings, that'll be good to see. I think that he's another guy that I could potentially see definitely giving Bedard a run for his money.
Yeah, and I think my point is less honestly about the player themselves and the supporting cast around them impacting their play, which obviously is a real point. But I do think there's something, because the Calder is a voted on trophy. I do think there's something in the perception of how a player is seen when they're playing for a team that's taken that next step. If Devin Levi leads the Sabres to like making it into the playoffs, like second, third in their division, maybe they win a round, like that does a lot more than Bedard putting up like 80 points for a Blackhawks team that finishes third last.
But if Bedard, 80 points for Bedard is I don't know, man. Bedard will have so many eyes on him, and if he puts up 80 points, the voters are going to be like, they're going to be like,
maybe let's take it down a notch. Maybe let's say 65 points for Bedard.
If he puts up 65 points and Levi as the starter leads the Sabres to the playoffs, I agree. But if we're talking an 80-point season for Bedard,
maybe
I'd say the
benchmark
line
too high. I sent the benchmark.
I think the line for Bedard is if he can get above like 75 points, he's got it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because as good as all these prospects are, none of these guys are hitting 75. The only guy with the potential to hit 75 is Bedard. Yeah. And I think whether all of these guys can win it is up to how good Bedard starts off being. And I think that's what we're talking about here, right? Because obviously we could all be talking out of our asses, wasted out the last 20 minutes when Bedard absolutely lights a dumpster fire on our asses, scoring 50 goals in the first season. But that's probably not going to happen, so.
But it could, and I could definitely see a world where it could.
It could, yeah.
And it would honestly be a shame because of the rest of this field. In any other year, there's a bunch of deserving candidates. Like the Matthew Knees.
I can tell you right now, I'm going to feel really bad for Bedard when he loses it to an 82 shutout season, Dustin Wolf. But it is what it is. Like we'll just have to see what happens.
You can have your dreams, Simon.